Ever found yourself cringing at a photograph you wish never saw the light of day? I've certainly been there. It's that sinking feeling of being caught in the wrong moment, immortalised in an unflattering pose or under unforgiving lighting. I'm Jonathan King, and I'm the Bernays Curatorial Fellow of British Paintings here at the National Gallery. The concept of capturing someone's likeness isn't as straightforward as it seems. If anything, the advent of photography has highlighted the vast spectrum of interpretations possible for any individual. Each portrayal claims truth, yet often dramatically varies. Unlike the instantaneous click of a camera shutter, the painted portrait is a laborious process requiring meticulous attention and an ongoing dialogue between the subject and the artist. It's a collaboration that unfolds over days, weeks, or even months, demanding patience and dedication from both parties involved. I'm talking today about this portrait of Queen Charlotte, completed by Thomas Lawrence in 1789. And I'm trying to answer the question, why did Queen Charlotte not like this portrait of herself? In the painting, Queen Charlotte sits regally, a symbol of her role as the Queen Consort of King George III. Her posture exudes authority, her gaze thoughtful yet commanding. Draped in opulent fabrics and adorned with pearls, every detail of her attire speaks to her royal status. Lawrence turned the Queen's plain chair into a symbolic throne, suggesting a baldacchino or royal canopy by the sweeping, heavily tasseled curtain that hangs above her. She is also associated with the tradition of royal pious benefaction by the glimpse of Holy Henry's Chapel at Eton College, found amid the autumnal trees in the distance. Despite these flattering details and the meticulous craftsmanship evident in Lawrence's brushwork, the Queen found it lacking, a sentiment that may seem perplexing given the dignity and grace emanating from the canvas. So, why did Queen Charlotte reject a portrait that, to our eyes, appears anything but unflattering? To start, let's delve into who Queen Charlotte was and the nuances of royal commissions so that we can begin to unravel the mystery around her elusive dislike for this portrait. Queen Charlotte was born in 1744 in the North German Duchy of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. She stepped onto British soil on the 8th of September 1761 to unite in marriage with George III. Their union was swiftly crowned with a joint coronation on the 22nd of September of the same year. Together, they had 15 children, and the Queen was responsible for their early education, employing and supervising their governesses and tutors. Contemporary accounts paint a vivid picture of Queen Charlotte's character, yet they often unfairly emphasize her physical appearance, a common experience for women throughout history. Horace Walpole, a notable writer of the time, lauded her as sensible and quick in understanding, with much grace in her manner. However, he, like others, acknowledged that she wasn't considered a great beauty. The Queen herself was candid about her looks, once telling the small daughter of one of her ladies of the bedchamber, "The English people did not like me much because I was not pretty." But what of her likeness immortalized in paint? Before Lawrence's portrait, Queen Charlotte had previously graced the canvases of esteemed artists such as Johann Zoffany and Thomas Gainsborough, their brushes capturing facets of her character and status. Such portraits serve as windows into her world, offering glimpses of a life intertwined with the arts and the demands of royal duty. They not only captured her regal presence, but also enriched the monarchy's cultural heritage. However, for an artist, being summoned by the Queen was not always a pleasant experience. Both she and the King had preferences and aversions when it came to them. For instance, they admired Gainsborough over Reynolds and were irritated by Benjamin West. Even Zoffany, who had received her earlier patronage, managed to annoy her with his artistic choices. Queen Charlotte's patronage of the arts reflected her appreciation for cultural enrichment and her desire to support artistic endeavours. Yet, for painters who received a summons to portray her, there were clearly problems far more fundamental than the fact that she was not seen as conventionally attractive. Some of these arose from the fact that she evidently held strong opinions about the works she commissioned. But also, these portraits were primarily aimed at providing a likeness which, as we know, is not a single, strictly verifiable thing. So, how did this particular portrait come about? Painted within the grand halls of Windsor Castle, the commission presented a formidable challenge for the young Thomas Lawrence, who, at just 20 years old, found himself thrust into the spotlight of royal patronage. On the 25th of September 1789, Lawrence received a letter from Windsor Castle directing him to arrive at Windsor in 2 days, equipped with his painting materials in anticipation of a sit-in with Queen Charlotte, scheduled for the following morning. A year prior, Lawrence had produced a portrait of Lady Cremorne, a lady-in-waiting to Queen Charlotte, who spoke admiringly of the artist, potentially facilitating his introduction to the Queen. But the summons to paint Queen Charlotte nevertheless came suddenly, forcing Lawrence to cancel prior engagements and sittings. The significance of portraying the Queen at this moment cannot be overstated. It marked a pivotal point in Lawrence's career, his first commission that promised both acclaim and recognition. From the letters and diary entries that remain, the sitting was probably the only opportunity Queen Charlotte afforded Lawrence, and the encounter was fraught with tension. Queen Charlotte arrived wearing a bonnet, which Lawrence objected to, prompting her to remove it to showcase her hair, which was noted for its beauty. What's more, the Queen appeared in low spirits, a trait known to accompany her reputedly temperamental disposition. Even Lawrence's attempt to suggest conversation with her daughter to enliven her features was met with disdain, deemed by the Queen as rather presuming. But why was there so much tension, and how might we perceive it in the painting? Queen Charlotte's low spirits likely bore the weight of broader concerns and personal hardships. The woman who sat half unwillingly to Lawrence had recently undergone the shock of her husband's first incapacitating attack of mental illness. As a wife, she had temporarily been in effect widowed, and as a queen, she had come close to assuming a regent's power to rule. Her anguish over King George III's enduring mental illness and the upheaval of the French Revolution undoubtedly influenced her perspective, and her isolation and loneliness seem hinted at in this romantically royal portrait, which significantly failed to please her. With all of this emotional turmoil bubbling below the surface, Lawrence encountered challenges in capturing her expression. With the help of X-ray photography, we can see that Lawrence skillfully breathed life into the Queen's unyielding features, transforming an initial weariness into a serene and contemplative countenance. Yet I can't help but feel that the expression that remains, while infused with dignity and introspection, subtly hints at underlying melancholy, softened by the gentle lines that denote maturity and wisdom. Elsewhere in the painting, Lawrence endeavoured to convey her unwavering allegiance to her husband through symbolic jewellery, notably the pearl bracelets adorned with the king's portrait and his monogram, which held profound significance for the Queen. Lawrence's adept use of colour transformed Queen Charlotte's attire into a luminous lilac hue, while the backdrop's melancholic tones add depth to the composition. Despite the challenges encountered during the sitting, Lawrence is rendering a poignant testament to Queen Charlotte's resilience and grace amidst tumultuous times. So we now know about the sit-in, but how was the painting received? The royal reception of the painting was fraught with disappointment. Queen Charlotte deemed the portrait a failure, while King George III expressed displeasure, particularly with the Queen posing bareheaded after Lawrence objected to the bonnet she initially chose to wear. Originally intended to be sent to Hanover, the painting faced financial hurdles when the king demanded it be engraved in London before payment, a cost Lawrence couldn't bear. Consequently, the painting remained in Lawrence's studio. He wasn't paid, and the painting failed to enter the royal collection. Yet the chagrin Lawrence no doubt felt at Windsor in 1789 was to some extent mitigated by the acclaim given to the portrait when he exhibited it at the Royal Academy the following year. Lawrence sent 11 pictures to the exhibition of 1790, including his portrait of Queen Charlotte. Reviewers dubbed him the future Joshua Reynolds, and Reynolds himself is said to have remarked to Lawrence, "In you, sir, the world will expect to see accomplished all that I have failed to achieve." It was recognized as a fine likeness and as a fine piece of painting, and one newspaper described it as a performance of which Van Dyck himself would have been proud. Importantly, several reviewers commented on the strong resemblance or most perfect likeness, with one finding a multitude of beauties and that criticism could scarcely point out a fault in this picture. Indeed, despite this hiccup in Lawrence's first royal commission, the incident did little to hinder his success as a painter. Following the passing of Joshua Reynolds in 1792, Lawrence would occupy the prestigious position of principal painter to the king. 2 years later, he was granted full membership to the Royal Academy. These accolades served as a precursor to Lawrence's unparalleled success as the preeminent British portrait painter of the early 19th century. His contributions to the art world were further recognized when he was knighted in 1815. And in 1820, he ascended to the position of the 4th president of the Royal Academy, solidifying his status as a dazzling luminary in the realm of British art. Never mentioned again by the Queen, this portrait of her remained in Sir Thomas Lawrence's studio until his death in 1830, after which it was sold at Christie's in his studio sale. George III's failure to buy it has certainly been the nation's gain, however, since it was eventually purchased by the National Gallery in 1927. So what can we learn about Queen Charlotte's disdain of Lawrence's portrait? There is no straight answer, but the episode surrounding the Queen's displeasure with the sit-in and its resulting portrait offers insights into the complexities of self-image and artistic license. Perhaps one's aversion to a portrait isn't solely about appearance, but can also be a reflection of the emotions and circumstances of the moment it was created. Portraiture, more than any other medium, invites explorations of identity and agency. In Queen Charlotte's rejection of this portrait of her, we witness the intersection of power dynamics between artist, patron, and audience, highlighting the sometimes fraught negotiation of image, authority, and likeness. If you're interested in learning more about art history, click here or here and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.